Capricorn, stop scrolling for a moment. This isn't just another video. This message was designed to find you. If your spirit feels like it's been carrying too much, if lately it seems like nothing flows the way it used to, then you are exactly where you're meant to be right now. Before you listen further, pause and type in the comments, "I received this message." Don't ignore that instruction. It's an act of faith, and that one simple declaration can shift the atmosphere around you. Because what I'm about to tell you isn't a coincidence, it's divine timing. You've been wondering why doors that once opened for you now stay closed, why opportunities slip away just when you thought they were finally yours. You've asked silently, "God, what changed?" But what if I told you, Capricorn, that it's not God who's gone silent, it's you? You used to pray with a fire that shook the heavens. Every word you spoke in faith carried power. But somewhere along the way, the weight of life dimmed that flame. You got tired. You told yourself you'd get back to it when things calmed down. You didn't realize that in the spirit realm, your silence echoed louder than your words ever did. There's a reason this message feels personal, because it is. I can feel it even as I speak. Someone watching this has been carrying an invisible heaviness, pretending to be fine while their spirit has been starving. You've mastered the art of appearing strong, but inside, you're running on empty. The blessings that once flowed into your life have begun to slow down, not because you're cursed, but because you disconnected from the source. Let me tell you a story. There was once a man who was chosen by God, anointed with favor, and surrounded by signs that he was destined for greatness. His name was Saul, the first king of Israel. When he began, he walked closely with God. Every battle he fought, he sought divine direction first, and victory always followed. But over time, Saul became too busy for prayer. He trusted his own decisions more than the one who gave him wisdom. And slowly, God's voice grew silent. The same man who once carried grace became tormented by confusion. He lost his peace, his crown, and his purpose, not because God abandoned him, but because he stopped listening. Capricorn, you're a lot like Saul. You are gifted, capable, ambitious, but you've been trying to do everything on your own strength. You've forgotten that the very foundation of your success was your connection to the divine. God isn't angry at your mistakes. He's angry at your distance. He misses your voice. You think he doesn't notice your silent tears, but he does. He's been waiting for you to come back, not with perfection, but with honesty. Think of Whitney Houston. She started her journey singing gospel, pure and anointed. Her voice wasn't just talent, it was ministry. But when she drifted away from her spiritual foundation, when fame became louder than faith, the light that once radiated from her began to dim. She tried to fill the void with the world's noise, but nothing satisfied her spirit. She had the world's applause, yet inside, she was drowning in silence. That's what happens when the soul disconnects from its source. Success without peace, love without depth, joy without meaning. Capricorn, that's why lately you felt so off. It's not just bad luck or delay, it's divine withdrawal. When heaven grows quiet, it's not rejection, it's correction. God withdraws so you can feel his absence and realize how much you need his presence. You've been seeing repeated numbers, hearing random songs that feel like messages, feeling strange chills at night. These aren't coincidences, they're spiritual reminders trying to wake you up. There's a battle happening for your attention. Every distraction, every frustration, every random setback lately, they're all designed to keep you from returning to prayer. The enemy doesn't need to destroy you, he just needs to keep you busy. Because a silent Capricorn is a disconnected warrior. And when a warrior stops communicating with their commander, they lose direction in battle. You've noticed it, the random mood swings, the spiritual fatigue, the dreams that don't make sense anymore. Those are signs. Before you used to wake up from dreams with clarity, now you wake up confused. That's not normal for you. You've lost the rhythm between your intuition and reality because the spiritual line is blurry. When was the last time you truly sat down and spoke to God, not just with words, but from your heart? There's a woman who used to pray every night before bed. She was always protected, accidents missed her, fake friends revealed themselves, and every problem she faced somehow turned for her good. But then life got busy. She told herself she'd pray tomorrow. Tomorrow turned into weeks, weeks into months. One day she noticed strange patterns, she kept losing things, her peace disappeared, and her relationships started to crumble. One night she woke up from a dream where she saw a light fading away in her room. When she tried to speak, no sound came out. She knew immediately heaven was waiting for her to talk again. Capricorn, that story isn't random. It's a reflection of what's happening to many of you watching right now. Your spirit used to be sharp. Your intuition was your armor. You could sense lies, avoid danger, attract blessings effortlessly. But when you stopped praying, your shield weakened. It's not that God stopped protecting you, it's that you stopped authorizing his protection. Prayer isn't religion, it's spiritual permission. Do you remember Samson, the mighty man with divine strength? The one who couldn't be defeated not by armies, not by kings. His strength wasn't in his muscles, it was in his covenant. But when he let the wrong person close, he broke that covenant and his strength left him. That's exactly what happens when a Capricorn stops praying. The strength doesn't vanish overnight. It fades quietly until one day you wake up and the fire is gone. That's why lately you've been feeling spiritually numb. You go through the motions, working, surviving, pretending, but deep inside, something feels missing. You're not crazy. That's the sound of your spirit calling you back to prayer, because prayer was never a habit, it was your lifeline. Think of the great empires, Babylon, Rome, Egypt, powerful, majestic, unstoppable, yet every single one fell not because of outside attack, but because they turned away from divine guidance. Pride replaced prayer, logic replaced listening, and the same thing happens in a human life. When you start believing you can do it all by yourself, you begin to lose the invisible protection that once covered you. Capricorn, you've always been the strong one, the reliable one, the one others lean on. But you can't keep pouring from an empty vessel. You've been trying to carry everyone's pain while ignoring your own. God didn't design you to do it alone. The reason he's angry is because you failed. It's because you forgot that you don't have to. His silence is his way of saying, I'm still here, but I won't compete with your distractions. Let me share another story. A man named Daniel, a modern-day Capricorn in spirit, built a successful business from nothing. Everyone admired him, but he carried a secret emptiness. He had everything the world could offer, yet nothing filled the quiet moments. He used to be deeply spiritual, praying each morning before opening his shop, but success distracted him. One day he got a call. His company was being audited. His best employee betrayed him, and his biggest contract fell apart. That night he sat in darkness, overwhelmed. For the first time in years, he whispered, God, I'm sorry I forgot about you. Within days, clarity returned. A new investor appeared out of nowhere. The betrayal that almost destroyed him exposed something that saved him later. That's how divine correction works. It breaks what's false to restore what's real. Capricorn, that's what's happening to you now. God isn't punishing you, he's protecting you from yourself. His anger isn't rejection, it's passion. Just like a parent gets angry when a gifted child wastes potential, God's anger is proof that he still cares. You are too important for heaven to ignore. Remember Jonah, the prophet who ran from his calling. When he disobeyed, God didn't destroy him. He sent a storm, and when Jonah still resisted, God sent a fish not to kill him, but to isolate him until he could hear again. Some of your isolation right now isn't loneliness, it's divine repositioning. The storm in your life isn't random. The delays, the breakups, the losses, they're all waves getting you back to your purpose. Robert Downey Jr. once said that jail was the best thing that ever happened to him because it forced him to stop running. His fall from grace wasn't the end, it was his awakening. When he surrendered and found faith again, his career resurrected beyond anything he imagined. God's anger is never final, it's redirection disguised as disaster. Capricorn, every struggle you've faced recently, the sleepless nights, the strange heaviness, the people who walked away, it's all been preparation for your realignment. Heaven hasn't forgotten you. Angels haven't abandoned you. They've just been silent, waiting for you to say, I'm ready to talk again. Because prayer doesn't have to be fancy, it doesn't have to be long, it just has to be real. Sometimes all you need to say is, God, I'm still here. That simple sentence can reopen 1,000 locked doors. The moment you decide to speak again, heaven begins to move. King David understood this. After his greatest mistakes, after losing almost everything, he prayed one thing, take not thy spirit from me. He didn't ask for fame or riches, he asked for reconnection, and God restored him completely. Denzel Washington once said his mother's prayers are what kept him grounded through fame. He admitted that every time he drifted away, something would happen that reminded him to pray. Even when he thought he was done with faith, faith wasn't done with him. That's how it works. God never truly lets his chosen ones fall too far. He lets you wander, but he never lets you vanish. Capricorn, the universe has been waiting for your return. You've been feeling the pull, the restlessness, the dreams, the synchronicities. Those aren't random signs. They're the whispers of heaven reminding you that your voice still matters there. If you're listening now, whisper this wherever you are. Father, I'm tired of running. I'm tired of pretending I'm fine. I've been strong for too long, but I miss you. Restore my peace. Reignite my altar. Let me hear you again. When you speak those words, don't rush them, feel them, because something shifts the moment a Capricorn prays sincerely. The angels who once stood silent turn toward you again. The atmosphere begins to move. The same way dry land appeared after the flood, your path begins to clear. You'll start to notice small signs, unexpected favor, sudden peace, strange calmness in moments that used to break you. That's not luck. That's divine reconnection. The silence is breaking. But before you go, I want you to pause. If this message has spoken to your soul, don't scroll away. Type "I'm ready to reconnect" in the comments, because every public declaration invites divine manifestation. Share this message with someone who has been distant from their spirit. You might just help them find their way back too. Because heaven has been waiting. And now that you've spoken again, something ancient inside you has started to wake up. Capricorn, there are moments in life when the silence around you feels too loud. You wake up and something feels missing, but you can't name it. You try to fill the emptiness with work, people, distractions, even laughter, but none of it lasts. You smile, yet you feel unseen. You achieve, yet you feel incomplete. The truth is, something sacred inside you went quiet, and you didn't even notice when it happened. If you've ever felt that strange, unexplainable distance between you and the peace you used to know, this message is your confirmation that it's time to return to what made you powerful. If you haven't already, type "I'm listening" in the comments right now, because by acknowledging this, you are already breaking the energy that's been blocking you. There's a mystery about prayer that most people forget. When you stop praying, you don't just stop talking to God, you stop hearing him too. The enemy doesn't take away your blessings first. He takes away your desire to pray. He numbs your spirit, makes you tired, busy, overthinking, until you no longer crave connection. Capricorn, lately, haven't you noticed how hard it's been to sit in silence? How your mind fights peace? That's because silence used to be the place where God met you. But now other voices have filled it. Fear, doubt, anxiety, exhaustion. You used to walk with purpose, but lately every step feels heavier. Do you remember that time when everything seemed to align perfectly, when blessings found you without trying? It wasn't luck, it was alignment. Your spirit was in tune with heaven, but then life started throwing storms, and instead of praying louder, you went quiet. You thought maybe it wasn't working anymore. You felt unheard, and that's exactly where the disconnection began. God didn't stop listening, you stopped believing he was listening. I want to tell you something that might sound strange, but it's true. When a Capricorn stops praying, nature notices. Have you ever seen how even your environment starts reacting differently? The home feels colder. Things start breaking unexpectedly. People who used to bring joy now drain your energy. That's not coincidence. It's atmosphere responding to spiritual silence. When your spirit dims, everything connected to your energy begins to reflect it. Let me tell you a real story. There was a woman named Alicia, a single mother with 2 children. She was a Capricorn too, strong, organized, a fighter. Every night she prayed for protection over her kids before bed. For years, nothing bad ever touched her home. One day she got promoted at work, and her new position demanded late nights. Slowly, the prayers stopped. She told herself, "I'll pray tomorrow," but tomorrow became months. Strange things began to happen. Her youngest child started having nightmares, waking up screaming about shadows in the corner of the room. Her car, which had never given her problems, broke down 3 times in 1 week. One night she was driving home exhausted and narrowly escaped an accident that should have killed her. That night, in tears, she whispered the first sincere prayer she had said in months, and immediately peace filled the room. The nightmares stopped. The shadows disappeared. The car never broke again. That's how powerful your prayer used to be. Even your silence is noticed by darkness, because it knows what happens when you speak again. Capricorn, your energy is ancient. You were born under a sign of leadership and spiritual authority. That's why life hits you harder, because you carry more weight in the unseen world than most people understand. When you stop praying, you don't just lose protection. The entire spiritual structure around you begins to shake. But God doesn't allow it to collapse. He allows it to tremble, so you'll remember what holds it up. Have you ever noticed how your intuition used to warn you before bad things happened? You'd feel it in your gut like an invisible nudge. That was your connection with the divine. But lately, you've been second-guessing yourself. You see red flags, yet ignore them. You sense something off, but you stay quiet. That's not confusion, that's disconnection. When you stop praying, you lose the rhythm between your spirit and your reality. It's like a musician trying to play a song with no sound. The melody still exists, but you can't hear it anymore. There's a story in scripture about Samson, a man chosen by God, strong beyond measure. His power came from his covenant, his promise to stay connected to God. But when he let distractions in, when he trusted the wrong voice, his covenant broke. The same man who once lifted gates off cities became powerless. That's how spiritual strength fades, not all at once, but piece by piece, until one day you wake up and realize the power that once flowed through you is gone. But here's the secret. It can return the moment you reconnect. Because no matter how far Samson fell, God restored him when he humbled himself again. Capricorn, lately, you've been carrying so much weight in silence. You try to stay strong for everyone, but your own heart has been bleeding quietly. You feel guilty for being tired, ashamed for needing help. But God's anger isn't at your weakness, it's at your distance. He knows your limits, but he's jealous of your silence. You used to call on him before making big decisions. Now you call your friends, or worse, you scroll through social media hopping for answers. But none of it satisfies the emptiness because you already know the truth. You've replaced divine connection with noise. Do you know what happens when a chosen one ignores divine silence? The universe starts repeating lessons. You'll find yourself in similar situations, facing the same kind of people, making the same mistakes, not because you're cursed, but because you're being called to remember. You're being drawn back to your altar. You might have noticed patterns, people leaving suddenly, plans falling apart, sudden confusion before breakthroughs. These aren't punishments, they're divine signals. There's a real-life story about a man named James, an entrepreneur who built $1 million company from nothing. He was spiritual, always prayed before every big deal. Then success came and prayer faded. He started believing it was all his effort, his strategy, his wisdom. Slowly, everything began to collapse. The business failed, the investors withdrew, and his closest friend betrayed him. One day, sitting in his empty office, he realized he had everything but peace. That night, he fell to his knees and prayed for the first time in 2 years. Within a month, a new door opened, a bigger opportunity than before. His prayer didn't just change his situation, it changed his perception. He realized God's silence wasn't punishment, it was protection from pride. That's what many Capricorns are going through right now. You're in a season where God's anger feels heavy. But it's really his love disguised as discipline. He's not trying to destroy you, he's trying to remind you of who you are. Because when you stop praying, your enemies start planning. They sense the silence around you. That's why people who never cared about you suddenly reappear. That's why you feel drained after certain conversations. It's spiritual energy being tested. Think about King Saul again. His downfall wasn't because of sin alone, but because he replaced prayer with assumption. He thought he could lead without listening. And when God went silent, he sought answers from the wrong sources. That's the danger of distance. When heaven grows quiet, desperation makes you listen to anything that sounds divine. Be careful who you take advice from in this season. Not every light is from God. The universe, Capricorn, is full of echoes. When you speak, you create ripples. But when you stop speaking to God, your echo fades. The world becomes noisier, and it becomes harder to recognize what's true. That's why lately it feels like everything's confusing. One day you're sure of what to do, the next day you doubt everything. That's not random, it's spiritual static. Let's talk about Jonah for a moment. God told him to go one way and he ran the other. So God sent a storm not to destroy him, but to get his attention. When Jonah still didn't listen, God sent a fish. And for 3 days, Jonah sat in the belly of silence. Sometimes the storms in your life aren't punishment, they're invitations. They're God saying, I need to talk to you again. Some of your isolation right now isn't rejection, it's redirection. You've been wondering why some people suddenly left your life. It wasn't betrayal, it was cleansing. Here's a truth that might shock you. God's anger toward you is actually his proof that he hasn't given up. If he were done with you, he'd go silent forever. But he's been sending you signs, repeating numbers, dreams that feel too real, sudden moments of déjà vu, songs that speak directly to your situation. That's divine language. You're being called back to conversation. Capricorn, I know it's hard. You've been surviving, not living. You give to everyone, yet nobody truly gives to you. You're the one everyone calls for help, but when you need help, it's just you and your thoughts. But that's where the breakthrough begins, when it's just you and God again. That's when your strength returns. Remember Robert Downey Jr.? He lost everything: fame, money, respect. His downfall was public, humiliating, but when he found faith again, everything changed. He admitted later that his lowest point was the turning point. That's the secret. Divine anger is often the shadow of divine restoration. It hurts because it's healing. When you begin to pray again, things don't immediately get easier, they get clearer. You'll start to see who was real and who was pretending. You'll start to feel peace in moments that used to cause panic. And slowly, you'll realize God never left. He was waiting for your voice. If you're listening to this right now, I want you to do something simple. Whisper, "God, I'm listening." That's it. You don't need the perfect words, just the willingness to reconnect. Because that single whisper shifts the entire frequency of your life. It's not about religion, it's about relationship. Something powerful happens when a Capricorn prays. The energy around them begins to realign. The same discipline that built your success is the same discipline that can rebuild your altar. And once that connection is restored, every delay breaks, every closed door begins to unlock. But here's the mystery most people miss. God's silence was never punishment, it was space. Space for you to realize that you were never meant to live disconnected. His anger wasn't against you, it was against the silence between you. And now, as you sit there, feeling this message tug at your spirit, something ancient is moving again. The same way a seed breaks before it grows, something inside you is breaking, not to destroy you, but to awaken you. The air around you will start to feel different. The thoughts that once confused you will start to organize themselves. You'll find yourself drawn to peace again, not chaos, because your spirit remembers the sound of divine conversation. So if this message is stirring something inside you, don't scroll away yet. Pause and type, "I'm ready to reconnect," in the comments, because when you acknowledge it, you authorize it. Share this message with someone who's been silent too long, because sometimes your obedience becomes another person's deliverance. And as you do that, remember this: heaven doesn't need a crowd to move, it only needs one willing voice, yours. But something even deeper is about to unfold, because when you finally speak again, heaven doesn't just listen, it responds. And when it does, what's about to happen next will shake everything you thought was over. Capricorn, listen to me carefully. You've been feeling something lately, a strange heaviness around your energy, an invisible pressure that seems to follow you even in silence. That's not just life testing you, that's not bad luck, that's divine correction. The reason you've been so restless is because you stopped praying, and the God who once walked beside you has gone silent, not because he abandoned you, but because you stopped speaking. Before I go deeper, I need you to do something important. If your spirit is awake right now, pause and type, "I receive this," in the comments. Hit the like button, not for me, but as your act of faith, a declaration that you still believe your connection to the divine can be restored. Because after what I'm about to reveal, you'll realize this message didn't just find you, it was sent to you. You see, Capricorn, there's a story about a woman named Miriam. She was one of those people who once had everything: peace, success, and divine favor. She prayed every morning before the sun rose, her faith stronger than her circumstances. But life has a way of distracting even the most devoted souls. Little by little, she started skipping prayers, saying, "I'll do it later." Later turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. And then everything began to crumble. Her clients disappeared. Her health weakened. Her relationships grew cold. When she finally returned to prayer, she didn't even know where to start. And yet, the moment she fell on her knees again, she said something simple: "God, I forgot you, but please don't forget me." That night, her phone rang with a new opportunity that rebuilt her life from scratch. That's how powerful reconnection is. Capricorn, you've been walking in a season that feels strangely delayed. You've been working hard, but the results don't match your effort. You've been loyal to people who keep betraying your kindness. You've been giving without receiving. And lately, you've been asking yourself, what's the point? That question is the echo of your silence with God. Because when your prayers stop, confusion speaks louder. The universe begins to lose alignment. Your blessings, the ones that were already released, start to circle around you with nowhere to land. They're waiting for your voice to call them home. Do you remember King David, the man after God's own heart? Even he reached a breaking point when he stopped praying. Psalm 32 says, "When I kept silent, my bones wasted away." He wasn't talking about physical pain, he meant spiritual emptiness. That's the same void you've been feeling, Capricorn, the emptiness that no amount of success, scrolling, or sleep can fill. That's your soul's hunger for divine attention. God hasn't turned away from you, he's waiting for you to knock again. Let me tell you something few people will ever understand. When God chooses a Capricorn, he doesn't bless them like everyone else. He tests them differently. He breaks them before he builds them. You're not ordinary, your prayers carry authority. That's why the moment you went silent, everything started trembling. The silence of a chosen one is louder than the prayers of 1,000 others. That's why you can't afford to be quiet anymore. There's a famous story about Denzel Washington. Early in his career, everything he touched seemed to fail. He was broke, rejected, and unsure of his purpose. But one night, an elderly woman at his mother's church told him, "You will speak to millions, and they will listen, but don't forget to pray." Years later, Denzel said that every success he achieved was born out of obedience to that single instruction. Capricorn, you're in that same place now, where God's promises are waiting on your return to prayer. Some people think prayer is begging, but for you, Capricorn, prayer is power. It's the sound that resets your atmosphere. When you speak to God, you're not just asking for things, you're commanding alignment. You're calling your angels back to position. And right now, many of your angels are still standing by, waiting for the next assignment you haven't given. That's why everything around you feels paused. Think about this. The reason the storms in your life have lasted longer than expected is because you're cursed. It's because the captain of your soul stopped giving directions. You've been trying to sail through chaos with no command. But the moment you say, "God, take over again," the winds will shift in your favor. You'll see opportunities reopen. You'll find strength you thought was gone. Let me share a real story that mirrors your current energy. There was a man named Eric Thomas. Today, he's one of the most powerful motivational speakers alive. But what most people don't know is that he was once homeless, sleeping on the streets, angry at God. He stopped praying because he thought God had forgotten him. One night, desperate and hungry, he shouted at the sky, "If you're real, show me." He didn't get an answer that night, but the next morning, someone handed him a sandwich and said, "God told me to feed you." That moment became his turning point. He began praying again, writing again, believing again. And today, millions of people listen to his words daily. That's what happens when you reconnect with the source of your power. Capricorn, I need you to hear this clearly. You are one prayer away from breaking the stagnation that's been holding your life hostage. You are one confession away from unlocking what was paused. And God is not angry to destroy you, he's angry because you stopped communicating. The anger of God towards a Capricorn is not wrath, it's divine jealousy. He knows what he put inside you, the strength, the vision, the destiny, and he can't stand to see you shrink into silence. Do you remember when Jesus told the parable of the prodigal son? The son left home, wasted his inheritance, and lived in poverty. But the father never stopped waiting for him. The moment he decided to return, the father ran to meet him. That's the same mercy waiting for you. The heavens haven't closed, they're waiting for your voice to open them. There's a pattern in your life right now: strange delays, sudden losses, friendships fading without explanation, and nights when your spirit feels restless. Those are not coincidences. Those are signals. Every time you ignore the call to pray, your protection weakens slightly. Every time you postpone your devotion, you step 1 inch away from alignment. That's why certain things are harder now than they used to be. But here's the good news: restoration doesn't take time. It takes recognition. The moment you acknowledge that you've drifted, grace runs faster than guilt. And even though God's anger feels heavy, his love is stronger still. Look around your life, Capricorn. Have you noticed that the people who used to drain your energy have suddenly fallen away? That's not rejection, that's repositioning. God has been quietly removing distractions so he can rebuild your focus. You thought you were losing people, but you were actually losing noise. And sometimes, the only way he can get your attention is through isolation. Do you remember Steve Harvey's story? Before he became one of the biggest names in entertainment, he was sleeping in his car, broke and frustrated. He once said, "I was so close to giving up that I prayed one last time, and that's when everything changed." That prayer didn't just change his situation, it changed his direction. Within days, he got a call from Showtime at the Apollo, and his life took off. Capricorn, you're in that exact same pre-breakthrough silence. You just need to open your mouth again. There's something divine that happens when a Capricorn prays after silence. Heaven listens differently, because your journey has never been about comfort, it's been about calling. You've survived storms that would have crushed others. You've endured betrayals that should have broken you. You've been through loss, rejection, and doubt. And yet here you are still standing. Do you think that's coincidence? No, that's preservation, divine preservation. You may not realize it, but there are people waiting for your comeback. There are souls tied to your obedience. When you start praying again, you don't just realign your destiny, you awaken theirs. Your silence has kept not just your blessings waiting, but theirs too. That's why this message found you, because your awakening will trigger a chain reaction of miracles for others connected to you. Capricorn, sometimes God hides your blessings until you remember your source. The anger you feel from heaven right now isn't punishment, it's protection. He's withholding what you're not ready to manage without him. But the moment you say, "God, I'm ready to listen again," you'll feel the atmosphere shift. Doors will open effortlessly. People will start mentioning your name in rooms you've never entered. You've been chosen for impact, and chosen souls are never allowed to get too comfortable in silence. That's why you've been restless. That's why you keep seeing signs, repeated numbers, recurring dreams, sudden thoughts of prayer in the middle of your day. Those aren't coincidences. That's heaven whispering, "Talk to me again." But here, where it gets deep, some of the battles you've been facing weren't sent by the devil. They were allowed by God to bring you back to your knees. When a Capricorn forgets to pray, life doesn't just slow down, it starts recalibrating through divine pressure. That's why the same job that once fulfilled you suddenly feels draining. That's why the same people you once loved now feel distant. It's heaven adjusting your environment until you look up again. And once you do, once you start praying again, the anger of God turns into acceleration. The same storms that once shook your life will become the wind that carries you forward. Capricorn, listen, you've spent enough time trying to fix everything alone. Now it's time to let God fight for you. But before that happens, I want you to say something out loud, wherever you are. "God, I'm sorry for my silence. I'm ready to speak again." Those words will shift everything. Your next miracle isn't waiting on time, it's waiting on sound. Your prayer is the key that will unlock everything that's been held up. The moment you start speaking, your angels will move, your finances will flow, and your peace will return. You'll start noticing divine coincidences, a call, an opportunity, a message like this one, confirming that heaven has heard you. And when it happens, don't forget this truth. God's anger is not to destroy you, Capricorn, it's to discipline you into destiny. You've been chosen, not just to succeed, but to lead. And the world needs the version of you that prays again, because the silence of the chosen delays the miracles of the world. So before you scroll away, make this your declaration right now. I will not be silent anymore. Type it in the comments. Like this video as a prophetic act, not for vanity, but for visibility. Because every time you do, you're spreading light in a world that's forgotten how to pray. And through your obedience, your voice will not just reach heaven, it will echo across the lives of those meant to awaken through you. Because Capricorn, the moment you start praying again, everything that was asleep in your destiny will begin to rise. And what's coming next will make the silence worth it. Capricorn, there's something you need to hear before anything else. Don't scroll, don't move, just listen. Because this moment right now might be the turning point your spirit has been waiting for. You see, this message didn't find you by accident. The timing, the title, even the way you stumbled upon it was written. And if you're hearing this, it means heaven is ready to speak again. So before we go deeper, I want you to do something. Tap the like button, not just because it helps the channel, but because it's a prophetic act of agreement. Type "I'm ready" in the comments. Let that be your declaration, because what I'm about to say will pierce through silence, pride, and fear. This is the moment where you get your power back. You've been walking with a strange weight lately, haven't you? A heaviness that no one seems to understand. You smile in public, but your heart feels dry. You laugh, but there's a quiet sadness that never leaves. It's because you've been running on empty, spiritually disconnected, emotionally exhausted, and mentally scattered. Somewhere along the line, Capricorn, you forgot the sound of your own prayer. And when a Capricorn stops praying, the entire universe notices. You are one of those souls whose presence carries order. When you go quiet, the energy around you begins to tremble. But lately something has been stirring again, hasn't it? The sleepless nights, the repeating dreams, the sudden coincidences that feel like whispers from the unseen, the number 333 showing up, a song that feels like a message, that one sentence you heard someone say in passing that felt like it was meant for you. These aren't random. These are divine reminders, because heaven has been trying to reach you, not to punish you, but to prepare you. There's a story from ancient times that reflects exactly where you are. Jonah, the prophet who ran from his calling. God told him to go one way, but he chose another. He boarded a ship to escape his assignment, and the sea turned against him. The storms came not to destroy him, but to direct him. And when Jonah finally cried out in the belly of the fish, saying, "I remember you, Lord," the sea calmed. That's the same story being rewritten in your life. The chaos around you isn't meant to break you, it's meant to wake you. But what's even more powerful, Capricorn, is that this awakening isn't just about you. When a Capricorn reconnects with God, generations shift. Your obedience unlocks blessings for people you haven't even met yet. That's why your silence has been costly. There are destinies waiting on your voice. Let me tell you about a man named Anthony, a real story that mirrors yours. Anthony was a musician, talented, creative, but spiritually disconnected. He once said he used to pray before every performance, asking God to guide his gift. But after fame came, the prayers stopped. He told himself he was too busy. Slowly, his creativity faded. He couldn't write like before. His passion dried up. Until one night, he broke down in his studio and said, "God, if you're still there, use me again." The next morning, he wrote a song in 10 minutes, a song that went on to heal millions. That's what happens when divine anger turns to divine mercy. When you return, the same power that was once silent begins to roar again. You see, God never punishes out of spite. When he's angry with a Capricorn, it's because he sees what you refuse to. He sees the greatness you've buried beneath excuses. He sees the purpose you've been postponing. He knows the light you carry, and he refuses to let you live below it. That's why you keep losing comfort. That's why certain relationships, jobs, or habits keep falling apart. They're being stripped away to make room for what's divine. But I need you to understand something deeper. Not every silence from God is rejection. Sometimes it's reflection. Sometimes he waits to see if you'll still seek him when he's not blessing you. Because real faith isn't built in answered prayers, it's built in unanswered ones. That's what you've been enduring lately, a faith test disguised as delay. But what's coming after this silence will make sense of every sleepless night. There's another story that might shake something inside you. Oprah Winfrey once said there was a moment early in her career when she lost everything she'd built. The show was cancelled. Her confidence shattered. She sat alone and said, "I stopped praying. I thought I could handle it." That very night, she went back to prayer and surrendered again. Within months, her breakthrough came and it never stopped. She said, "When I got back to God, everything else came back to me." Capricorn, that's the secret. When you reconnect, restoration doesn't take years, it takes moments. But I know what you've been thinking. You feel unworthy, right? You think you've gone too far, done too much, or been silent too long. Let me tell you this, you can never drift too far from the love that created you. The same God who parted the Red Sea is the same God who can part your confusion. The same one who forgave David, who blessed Solomon despite his mistakes, who lifted Job after he lost everything. He hasn't changed. He's waiting for your voice. And Capricorn, your voice carries something rare. You have authority in the unseen realm. Your prayers don't just speak to God, they shake spiritual atmospheres. That's why you've been under attack lately. Because the enemy knows the moment you pray again, his plans collapse. You've been feeling drained, unfocused, maybe even spiritually numb. That's not coincidence, that's interference. But when you say this next prayer, the interference will end. Before I reveal it, I need you to pause and breathe. Close your eyes for a second. Remember who you were before the world made you doubt yourself. Remember that childlike faith, that version of you that believed in miracles. That's the energy heaven wants back. Now listen closely. When you stopped praying, you didn't just lose connection, you lost command. You used to speak and things moved. You used to ask and doors opened. But lately it feels like your words carry no weight. That's because authority comes from alignment, and alignment comes from prayer. But the moment you say, "God, I'm back," your authority returns instantly. Here's the truth no one told you. Divine anger is a signal of divine attachment. God only disciplines what he intends to elevate. The shaking in your life is not the end. It's the sound of construction. You're not being buried, Capricorn, you're being built. Let's go deeper. There's a pattern you've been missing. The same people who betrayed you, they were not your enemies. They were instruments. The rejection you faced was redirection. The delay you thought was punishment was actually preparation. And every tear you've cried has been watering the seed of your next miracle. Do you remember the story of Peter in the Bible? When he denied Jesus 3 times, he thought it was over. He ran, hid, and stopped praying. But when Jesus rose, the first person he called for was Peter. Why? Because failure doesn't disqualify destiny, it deepens it. Capricorn, that's your story. You thought your silence separated you, but it actually positioned you for something greater. Let me tell you the third real-life story, and listen carefully because it might sound familiar. There was a woman named Sarah who built a small business during hard times. She always prayed before making decisions and things prospered. But success made her forget. She stopped praying, thinking she had figured it out. Within months, everything collapsed, clients left, finances disappeared, anxiety took over. One night she said a simple prayer, "God, if you still want me, show me." The next day, a stranger sent her a message saying, "God says he's not done with you yet." Within weeks, everything turned around, not because she worked harder, but because she surrendered again. Capricorn, you are in that exact moment. Heaven is saying, "I'm not done with you yet." The silence, the struggle, the strange sadness, it's all been leading you here, because the moment you pray again, everything changes. Now here, where the climax unfolds, there's a reason God's anger toward you feels different. It's not like before. This time, it's burning to purify, not punish, because you've been called to carry something sacred, a generational mantle. You are meant to break cycles that have trapped your bloodline for years. You wonder why your life feels heavier than others. It's because you're the one chosen to change the pattern. You can't live like others, Capricorn. You can't ignore spiritual things and still expect peace. You've been set apart for divine influence, and the silence was the training. Every unanswered prayer was a lesson in faith. Every delay was a test of patience. Every heartbreak was a recalibration. You were never being punished, you were being positioned. Now let me tell you a truth most people never realize. When you pray again after a long silence, the spiritual realm responds violently, but in your favor. Angels move quickly, energy realigns, blockages break, people who wronged you start facing conviction, opportunities that were closed suddenly open. It's not luck, it's divine justice. Capricorn, when you stopped praying, you let the enemy think he had space. But when you start again, heaven invades that space. That's why after tonight, things will begin to change. You'll feel it in your spirit, your dreams, your surroundings. Signs will follow you again. But don't just listen. Act, speak this out loud. God, I return, use me again. Say it and mean it. Because when you do, the weight will lift, the confusion will fade, and the clarity that's been missing will return stronger than ever. And listen carefully, your next season is not about noise, it's about direction. Pray with purpose, speak intentionally, move quietly, because this time your success will not be public noise, it will be private proof that God's favor has found you again. You're about to walk into doors that were locked for years. You're about to see people apologize without explanation. You're about to experience peace that makes no sense. But you must pray again, that's the condition. Heaven is waiting on your sound. So before you leave, type, "I will pray again" in the comments. Tap that like button and let it be your covenant act of faith. Because each act of agreement expands this energy, this prayer, this message, and it reaches someone else who's on the edge of giving up. Capricorn, your silence shook heaven, but your prayer will shake the earth. And right now, as you listen, angels are being dispatched. The divine anger that once felt unbearable is turning into unstoppable favor. You are not too late. You are not forgotten. You are simply being called one last time to rise, speak, and return. Because the moment you do, the story of your life will take a turn that no one, not even you, saw coming.